get organs from total strangers. They feel like they want to eat French fries, and they don't even know why. So I always kid my daughter saying, you know, I'll know where you're at. I'll know what you're doing. Somebody puts a hand in your thigh, I'll know it. You know? And it worked for about 6 months.
Daddy's watching, Daddy's watching.
Then she figured out it wasn't true. So anyway, so what happened was she graduated from high school, and we had this big board up with all these pictures of her life, and from the time she was a baby until the day she gave her commencement address. And I started looking at those moments and thinking, you know, I've missed some of these. And then I started looking at the ones that I didn't miss and thought, well, I remember it this way. And so I started looking at those things thinking, you know, the moments in our lives change as we grow older and we start to be a little bit more wise in how we look at our lives, and the lessons reveal themselves as we go along. And so when we went to put I made some notes, and we went to put all the pictures back in the ultimate picture frame, which is the giant Rubbermaid.
Yeah.
People call it a picture. You just throw them all in there. You take all these pictures, and they all end up in a box, right? So my son's going through these. He goes, hey, look at this, and look at this. And he pulled one out, and there's a chapter in the book called Higher Ground, where it was 1983. I was in Colorado in the Rockies, and I was up climbing and doing these things, and there was a picture of me making my way down the mountainside. It's slightly snowing, and I looked at it. He goes, hey, Dad, this guy looks like you, but skinnier. Who is this? So that's me. But it started me thinking that as we change, our thoughts change. And so that was really the impetus of the book. And so the first thing I did when I started writing was taking a look around in my life, and this was the first chapter that I wrote called Big Jake. What is it about our furred and feathered friends that gets so inside of us? Perhaps it's an ancient connection from a time when the only thing between our ancestors and being the next meal for a saber-toothed tiger was a barking dog. Maybe it's the majesty of the pharaohs and the godlike qualities assigned to the forebears of the common house cat that bring a little royalty in our otherwise drab existence. For dog people, it's coming home and knowing that no matter what and how your day went, Rover will accept you just the way you are. For cat lovers, it might be the air of aristocracy that makes them feel a little more royal, and we need it most. My life has been filled with great animal friends, guides, large and small, and I'm a better human because of all those that swim, crawl, walk, and fly. In particular, a very large boxer dog named Jake gave me some incredible moments. I knew at the moment my eyes connected with those brown orbs behind steel bars that he was coming home with me. The cage was in the corner of the living room, and the woman was explaining to me that he was kept in this small prison most of the time because she had 2 little kids and the dog was her husband's idea. A couple of bags of cheap dog food in the kitchen alluded to his bony condition, and as we spoke, I felt like this beautiful brindle boxer with the pointed ears and the stub for a tail was silently pleading for me to set him free. Being a maverick myself, I totally understood his distaste for confinement, and I thought about how everything had lined up to make this happen. You crying already? Yeah, I barely make it through this chapter, so that might happen to me too. It was just a week earlier when I had called the shelter about the possibility of someone giving up a boxer for adoption. At first, the woman laughed at me at the thought of a purebred being let go for the cost of shots or a donation to the shelter. But as with all things that are meant to be, there he was, not 5 feet away, waiting for me to pick him up. So will you take Jake and give him a good home? The woman asked tentatively as she held one of her kids. The other one was using a chair for a diving board into the couch. Why do you call him Jake? I asked. Well, 9 months ago when we brought him home, the movie Big Jake with John Wayne was on, and it seemed to fit. I wasn't sure if it was the dog features or his swagger that resembled the Duke, but either way, the name had a ring to it. I'll make sure that Jake has a great life, I said. And with that, the cage was opened, the prisoner was set free, and out the door we went. I had taken the back seat out of my Jeep and piled it with blankets in anticipation of this event, and in one graceful bound, Jake found his place in my truck and in my heart. I watched him in the mirror as we drove back to the city. He was curled up in the same fashion he did in the cage, and for such a big dog, he had learned to become very small. The whole time we drove, he didn't move, and he kept his brown eyes fixed on me in the rearview mirror. I felt like I had not only saved his life, but somehow my own. I was all of 22 years young at the time, proudly serving in the aviation wing in the United States Coast Guard. I was the quintessential All-American with blonde hair, blue eyes, a square jaw, and a life filled with sports and adventure. It seemed fitting that I have a dog that would somehow round out my existence. I was living with a young woman and had cleared the way for a possibility that I'd be coming home with a dog. The landlord was a little harder to convince. I think it was my volunteering to add $50 a month to the rent that helped. And as we bounced along the road to Chicago, I knew somehow deep inside that Jake was here to stay.